Thank you.
Let me now come to Professor Ackah. And before I take your concluding comments, I just want to find out from you. You made mention of the fact that we had been here before as a country. I just want you to go back a bit and explain to us when we had been here before. Because if you look at the Fourth Republic, for example, if you look at our exchange rate, we've never got here before. If you look at our debt burden, we've never hit, this tune of debt before. We're looking at around 450 billion from what the finance minister told us the last time, about 330 billion added on within the last 6 years, within this administration. You look at the inflationary rate, 40.4% and the rest. So do explain to me, before we get to your concluding comments, how and when did we ever get here?
Well, if you go to our history, the most recent one is to find out how was Busia overthrown as a Prime Minister of Ghana. And you will know that it was the same debt, external borrowing, that had consumed the whole nation. We had a very serious debt overhang. And when Busia's government came in, we went all over the world trying to look for a bailout. It's the IMF that came. The same IMF, was proposing to Busia to implement austerity measures, the kind of things we are seeing, high taxes, stopping government spending, recruitment, employment, and prison a freeze on wages here and there. And there was demonstration all over the place. That's what eventually pushed Busia away. We've had those kind of histories before. The most recent one was the Doomsor. When we had a Doomsor for 5 years, we almost did nothing about it. We seem to think that we can allow crisis to go away by itself. The Doomsor, I published a paper, and the Doomsor, each year that we had Doomsor, Ghana was losing about 3 billion. So over the period, we were losing about 686 million US dollars. Over the 4-5 years that we had Doomsor, we lost a lot of money that was enough to have built a new refinery. So if our problem was
a new refinery of what? Oil?
Yes, the total oil refinery, we could have built Tor all over again afresh. And since we have oil, for example, even now that we are discussing, one of our biggest problem is the importation of oil, crude, and then processed refined petroleum products. And if you ask that government should invest in Tor, they will say there's no money. And some economists and some politicians will say, no, government should cut down on its expenditure. But if I was to advise government, I would have asked government to make sure that just like we are taught, every oil, crude that we are producing here must not leave the shores of Ghana. It must be processed here. And if it will require government, if we cannot have a private sector to invest in an oil refinery, it is nothing wrong for the government itself to build a refinery, to support a refinery here where we can produce our processed petroleum products here. And if you add that to the Ghana gas, we would have solved one of our biggest problems where we lose a lot of dollars because of that. But there are people who think that, well, government, leave it for the market, government doesn't have money and it should not go into, like Dr. Tiahin was saying, the central bank can never run out of money. There's no central bank in the world that doesn't have money. The central bank can only run out of external reserves because we don't produce dollars. So we can run out of our reserves. But no central bank can run out of its local currency as a sovereign central bank. It's an ideological decision. It's a political decision. It's something that we decide that we don't want central bank to print money. If that's what we have decided, no problem. But otherwise, there's no central bank that can run out of its own local currency. And if it's going to use that local currency to do an economic project, to invest in a Tor or in agriculture, I don't see what is the problem about it. I don't see how it causes inflation. One of the things that is causing inflation here is because of food. Food prices are going up and we are importing a lot of food. So if the central bank could support agriculture, industrialization, to produce the food we eat here, how should that cause inflation? It should rather bring inflation down because the prices are going to go down. So we have had these ideological, philosophical discussions about the role of the central bank and the issue about creating money and printing money. But it's not as if central bank is powerless and can run out of its own resources. It doesn't have. But I think I wanted to support, as I conclude, what Dr. Tuahene was saying. And I want us to honestly face this problem. There is no way Ghana is going to prosper or develop to become a high-income country if we neglect agriculture. It's because we neglected agriculture for all these years. That's where we are now. That services seems to be the one driving the economy, and services does not develop a country. It does not create the necessary jobs and the feedback and to be able to raise the productivity in the other sectors. So Agric, every country, Britain, US, Japan, Malaysia, South Korea, every country that has developed to become a rich country, they first, as of first importance, focused on agriculture. And it had all the state resources, all the state financing, all the state research and technology development was backing agriculture. And when agriculture developed and modernized, then labor was released onto manufacturing, and then the service sector also picked up. We have failed to do that. Agriculture, we still have hoe and cutlasses, we still have lack of irrigation, lack of modernized technology and other things. You can get to, I was driving last week, I got to Akumada. Just like Dr. Tuahene was saying, Burkina Faso has invested in tomatoes. Almost every household in Akumada is a tomato household, growing household. A lot of tomatoes are there. Very cheap, but there's almost no government support. There's almost no industry to help process it into tomato paste. And the prices, by the time it gets to Accra, you cannot buy it. Onions now, we are importing them from Burkina and Niger. All of those kind of things. So I think that since tomorrow is a Farmers' Day, I think we need to invest in agriculture. But when I look at the budget, the amount of money being located to agriculture, about 2 billion Ghana cedi, is woefully inadequate. We need, by my own estimations, to spend at least 7 to 10% of our GDP on agriculture annually for the next 5 years if you're going to break forth into prosperity. And that 7 to 10%, you're talking about 40 to 50 billion Ghana cedi must be invested. Government must look for that resources to spend about 40 to 50 billion Ghana cedi each year in the agriculture sector alone for the next 3 to 5 years, and everything will change. There will be enough food, farmers will become rich, there will be a lot of savings, and there will be a lot of productivity, and then it will raise the other sector, which will be the manufacturing, agro-based industrialization, and that will lead to our prosperity. If we still keep 1 billion, 2 billion into agriculture, planning for food and jobs, very good philosophy, but there's no financing that is actually being put there, 2 billion, it's not going to do the trick, and it's not going to do the magic. And I think that if we take Agric seriously, we are going to see that everything is going to change. If we fail to invest in agriculture and agriculture stagnates, the whole economy will stagnate.
Just